Hello, welcome to the February 24th, 2023 Club Cubase live stream. My name is Greg Undo, and I'm the host of the live stream. And if you have not attended a live stream before, how it works is you can either submit questions in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de, or you could simply ask your questions in the live chat field. When asking questions, if you could, it's always helpful if we could indicate which level of Cubase that you're running, whether it's Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro, which version number, so if it's 10, 10.5, 11, or 12, and which operating system you're running. So if it's Mac OS or Windows, that information is always helpful. Realize that we will have a lot of questions that I won't be able to answer in a real-time manner. So if you see, if you don't get an immediate response to your question, realize that I'm spending 3 or 4 hours trying to catch up with all of the questions. So if we could refrain from repeating the same questions over and over, that would be appreciated. And we should have all the topics in the live stream that are covered today indexed with timestamps and pinned to the top of the comments field, so you can look there. If you wanted to search for topics that have been covered in previous live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com, and we want to give Jan special thanks for all of his help in creating that website. We also have 2 people in the community that serve as moderators, Agent K and Jazz Dude. We want to give a special thanks to them for all their efforts. They're not Steinberg employees. They just do it to make it a better community. Also, we want to thank Jazz Dude for all of his work with the Cubase Nation Discord. So it's a wonderful resource of information that's available to the Steinberg community. Once again, my name is Greg Undo. I work as basically as a product specialist focusing on Steinberg products for Yamaha Corporation of America. And I'm based in the U.S., and I'm presenting from outside of Washington, D.C. area in Alexandria, Virginia. If you are watching this live, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. And even if you're watching it on the replay, you could do that as well. It's always fascinating to see where people are from. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. All right, so we see Val Lee had already has hit the like button. He was number 13. We see Captenergy Music. All right. And we see Captenergy Music just indicating that he's deeply involved with the new Halion and loving it. Might be his favorite VST synth. So yeah, I think the guy's hit it out of the park with it. Okay, so we have from DDP Music, first question. If a plugin offers to install a VST3 plus VST2 and VST, do I need them all, or just VST3 is better? Can I safely delete all the VST duplicates? Thanks. So generally, the VST3 version would be the one that you would want to have installed on your particular project. So, you know, unless there's a specific need, and I can't really think of an instance, like maybe for project compatibility, if there is features in the VST2 version, it's not in the VST3. It's generally the other way around, where the VST3 has more capabilities that you might want to keep it. But if I had a choice, like I haven't installed a VST2 plugin in a long time. If I have the option of just doing VST3, I just install VST3 only. So that's what I would do. All right, wonderful to see Mark Winslow wishing aloha to everyone from Hawaii. All right, wonderful. Great to see Robbie Bowling from Dallas, Texas. We have Matt Elston from London. We have Benny checking in from Sweden. We see Jazz Dude on. All right, we see Peter checking in from Montreal. And just a quick reminder, next Tuesday's live stream will be the last of the month, and we will be doing our normal live stream, a 2-hour live stream followed by a normal Zoom meetup. So we'll have the Zoom link available in the next live stream. Okay, so we see a question. From Patrick, who asked, Greg, on key editor, I have some piano 16th notes on note C for 4 bars long. I thought I would like to make them go up vertically, like they make them sound like a roll. Is it possible? All right, so let's take a quick look, see if we could recreate that. Okay, so let's just put in some 16th notes here. Okay, so I think if you have them all in, we could, just say, okay, I want to take from there, go up, go over, so we could shift, double click, and then arrow up, shift, double click, arrow up, etc. So you could do it kind of like that. One thing that, you could do is if you grab the draw tool and just grab the paint brush, if you just wanted to come here and just kind of paint in notes, you could do it like that. And you can say, okay, I want to, at this point, just do a scale correction. So you say, okay, I want this to be in E major and quantize the pitches. And now we could, as we do this, just kind of, so, if we select just the paintbrush tool, try just doing something like that, and now quantize pitches, and you could just, draw in particular runs like that. You could also, as we want to do this, let's say if we put it into step input mode, I could say I just want to put in 16th notes, and let's say we'll snap our live input. So, and we activate, let's say, our bar right here. So I could just go across my MIDI controller, and then, if you wanted to at that point quantize pitches or have this snap live MIDI input. So you could try those things, Patrick, to kind of get it done quickly, as opposed to, if it's everything is just inputted as 16th notes, you'd have to kind of move those, but there's no way to say do it ascending and keep it in scale. We can keep it in scale, but it might be best just to kind of start off with just kind of, drawing notes in with maybe the paintbrush tool and then quantizing accordingly using the scale assistant. All right, so we see a question in Nectar from Isotope. There's a digital and optical setting for compression. Some say it's the best compression on vocals. Anything similar in Cubase? So once you go to the different dynamics plugins, so let's say if we just go to the channel strip here, and let's say if you go to your tube compressor, and you'll have those same types of flavors, or if you wanted to go to your vintage compressors, I think this might be more of the optical, if memory serves. I could be wrong in that, but I would just try between the vintage and the tube compressors, and you could get those same flavors. All right, so we have Alexander Plasko saying hi. Okay, so we have a question from Val Lee. Says, I have preferences set to open events in the lower zone while keeping that setting. Is it possible with a key command to open a MIDI event in the key window? So yeah, all you have to do is when you come over, just hit like Control or Command plus the letter E. So let's say if I'm here, so we could double click and see it in the lower zone. But if we want to hit like Control or Command E, we could have that set up to automatically go to the upper zone. So you go to Preferences, to Editors, and you can say open editor commands, open editors in a window. So we can say double click opens and say open editor commands. We could just say open in window. And that way when you hit Command or Control plus E, that will just open it up in a standalone window. All right, wonderful to see Chris Hallam checking in from Athens, Georgia. Okay, so we see a question from Patrick. Greg, is it possible to arrange tracks with Project Logical Editor? If it's possible, show us. I know how to do it with the arranger track. I'm curious to know whether it's possible or not. So, I don't know. I think if we have the arranger tracks, if it's with the arranger track that you're seeking, what we could do is just come over. I think I have a project. Okay. So once we're here, and if it's for kind of working with the particular arranger track, so let's say if we have our arranger track just kind of laid out for us here, to work with the arranger track, I don't think that the Project Logical Editor, would really be involved with the arranger track. But let's see if we... it's kind of handled on the track itself, but I'll just take a quick look, see what we could do with the, if we wanted to say the container type is, or the media type, let's see if the arranger, so we could rename selected events, but it's not going to necessarily create the arranger events. So I think, we could say, okay, if the arranger event is selected, we could come over here and say, okay, I want to, change the position on the arranger track. So, if I wanted to, if we had a particular arranger event selected, we could do stuff like maybe move the arranger event by time. So let's say, okay, I want to add, 2 bars. So now if I come over here, yeah, so, the Project Logical Editor doesn't have too much interaction with the arranger track. So. All right, so we see Luke Steen says, hi, Greg, I'm from Belgium, I'm a big fan, so thanks for joining us today. All right, and we have Jovanovic 3D checking in from Slovenia. Thanks for joining us today. All right, so we see, is there an upgrade price from Halion SE to Halion 7, or do we have to pay the full price? Is there a difference between Halion Sonic SE 3 and Halion Sonic 3? So we can think of the SE as being the starter edition. So Halion Sonic SE 3 was the program that was bundled directly with Cubase. So, when we were working with that and we wanted to... So there's a Halion Sonic SE3, think of starter edition for SE, that came with Cubase. There was a Halion Sonic 3, which offered a broader library and more capabilities. And then you had Halion 6. So this has kind of been changed to make it a little simpler. So we're kind of in the transition. So there's now a Halion Sonic 7, which is free to use, and you could purchase additional sounds. And then there's Halion 7. So Halion Sonic 7 is basically replacing Halion Sonic SE3. Now, since Halion Sonic SE3 was part of Cubase and wasn't sold separately, as opposed to like Halion Sonic, which was like $200, there's no direct upgrade path since you didn't buy anything to upgrade from other than what was included with Cubase. So there's no direct upgrade path, so you'd have to buy it separately. But if you had Halion Sonic 3, not Halion Sonic SE, the free version, then you could do a discounted upgrade to Halion 7. I know it's a little confusing. All right, so we see Dave Hoden checking in from Denton, Texas. All right, so we see that Uno Momento, it's -5 degrees centigrade, calm and great skiing weather in Finland. Thanks for joining us. We have Mark Ludmer. Wonderful to see Mark Ludmer checking in from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hope you're doing well. And we have Keys for Life, Pradeep checking in from India. We have Soren. Okay. Wonderful to see Michael Pierce. All right. So you see PZ136 says, apart from all the issues, my UR824, my Groove Agent content is missing. I'm not one for ranting, but did you get my email for my support tickets? I did see the email, and I didn't get a chance to send it out. It's been kind of an extraordinarily busy week with other work responsibilities. But check to make sure that, which Groove Agent content, like if you go to the, if you go to, let's say let me know, PZ136, if you see it in the Steinberg Library Manager. So if you open that up and go to Groove Agent, do you see the content here? Also, did you recently upgrade? So maybe the content wasn't upgraded from the previous licensing system with the e-licenser to the new Steinberg licensing. And also, if you could let me know which content sets or no content sets are showing up. All right, so we see Bruce Bruton checking in from a rainy Simi Valley, California. All right, we have Stefan from Sweden. And we see from the Heartbreak Time Machine that it is from Sacktown where it's cold and windy. So we see from Patrick, said, Greg, I sent you my music. Have you listened to it? What's your thought? So I thought it sounded really good. I just kind of listened to it quickly on my phone, and I was going to listen to it on my desktop computer with my speakers, but the Facebook Messenger just kind of kept cycling over and over again. So if you have a chance maybe to share an MP3, if you want to email me or a link to an MP3 so I could listen to it on something besides my phone, that would be great, Patrick. But I thought it sounded good. What I had heard on my phone sounded really nice. Congratulations. All right, so we have a question. Can I put different MIDI clips to one MIDI instrument like lanes and use the comp tool? All right, so let's take a look. Okay, I'll just copy this event. So we're just going to come over here. And let's open up lanes. So now I just kind of had copied these different events, and let's come over here. And so when we want to do editing, we could just use the comp tool on different lanes, just like so. So once we kind of click, we could just say, okay, as we select, different events. We could do comping on MIDI tracks. Now, when you want to record in this manner, go to the MIDI record mode, and you probably want to say, you could do stacked recording. So as if we wanted to, let's say while we're doing cycled MIDI recording, I'll just do a quick recording directly here. And I'll just put it into a quick cycle. Sorry about that. All right. Didn't like my MIDI note I played. Okay, so we'll just put this into a quick cycle record, and we'll show you how we could set this up. So we'll say so we're just going to put it into a stacked record mode. So we'll come here. Let me just reset my audio connections, make sure it's set up correctly. Okay, so we'll put it into cycle. So I'll start playing kind of high notes. So when we look at this, we can now, so let me just set my record mode here. All right, so we'll just say into stacked mode and hit record. So at this point, it's just like we're comping audio. Come grab the hands. I want that part of that take, that part of that take, and you're good to go. So once again, just put your MIDI record mode here. Switch that probably to stacked and do cycle recording, and then you should be able to comp it just like you do audio. All right, my chat field has jumped on me. All right. All right, so we have Brian Sawyer checking in from Beulahville, North Carolina. Thanks for being on. We have John Barry from Old England. Okay, so we see, hi Greg, is there a way to link both project window and mixing window? I've hid some tracks in the project window, but it's appearing in the mixing window, consuming more times to do in both and always in both solutions. So let's say I have my project window here. We'll go to visibility, and we have a whole folder here at the end. We'll see like the tracks labeled audio 01 through audio 08. So I'm going to hide these here. And there's a little setting if you click here where you could sync the project and mix console. And this is for the views. So I'm going to activate that. So when I go to my mix console now, my audio 1 through 8 is also hidden. Let's come back, activate that, and we go to my mix console window, hitting F3, and those are in sync now. So If you wanted to sync the visibility between the project window and the mix console, just make sure that you check just to the right here in the tab. You'll see this, and you could do that to any one of the 4 mix console windows, but you could just sync project and mix console right there. So make sure that's checked, and then anything that you hide in one will be hidden in the other. All right, wonderful to see John Costigan from Kenosha, Wisconsin. All right, so we have a question from the Heartbreak Time Machine. Is there a way to lock a Cubase file so it can't be edited? So I don't know of a particular way of doing that. So you might be able to, at the operating system level. So let's come here and look at where I have my projects. Okay, so let's see if we go to get info, and maybe on the project itself that you could set it to write protect. So if you go to sharing and permissions, you could probably just say, for me, I could have this be read only or no access. So it's probably going to be at an operating system level where you could just set the project to read only, but there's nothing in Cubase kind of like almost analogous to a PDF file where you can't edit it versus a Word file as easily. So maybe at the operating system level, you could lock it directly there. But I'm sure if we put a lock on it, everyone would be mad because they got locked out of their projects. Okay, so we see a question. Hi, Greg. Is there a way to select a couple tracks and have them mute or solo with one click in the project window? I tried to modify our keys and it didn't work. All right. So let's say I have these tracks set here. So just hitting S would solo. And let's see if I just hit M, just when the tracks are selected, maybe not events. But as soon as I have my different tracks selected here, S, and that will solo the tracks. And if I hit M, that will mute the tracks. So let me know if I'm doing something differently than you are, but it seems like all right, so just see, tried a few modifier keys and it didn't work, but let me know if that's what you want to do. And make sure that you don't have events selected. That might throw off the track selection. All right, so we see Nick says he's not feeling so great, but he popped in to whack the like button. Thanks for joining us. We hope you're feeling better over the weekend so we can see you on Tuesday's Zoom meetup. Okay, so we see from PZ136, it says, yes, all my content is missing in Cubase but present in the library manager. All my licenses are out of sync. It's all in the video and it seems to be getting worse. Okay, so make sure that you have downloaded the latest content versions directly from the Steinberg website or from the Steinberg download manager as well. So, it could be that you just have to reinstall the content, that might be under different licensing. But I'll take a look for the email right after, or if you want to resend it, so it'll be very fresh in my email box. I'd be happy to take a look but make sure that you've done all of the recent updates from the Steinberg download manager for your Groove Agent content. Okay, my chat field just jumped. Okay, so we see Jay from Secret Studios. Hi, Greg. I'm now attempting to wrap my head around hardware effects. I'm wondering if hardware effects be a mixer among a plugin chain. So once you have a hardware effect, basically what the hardware effect is going to allow you to do is to, we need to define, like, let's say if we have a channel, a compressor. So we can come over and say, I want to use available inputs and outputs on my audio interface to send the signal out to the hardware, and the hardware, we're sending the signal out of the hardware back to an audio input. So once we've done that and we've configured that, when we go to our inspector, we could say, I want to start off by going to my inserts, and I want it to be a software, EQ. I want it to be an external plugin, let's say a distressor, and then I wanted this to be distortion. So we can come over, and this effect is then, in essence, being sent out of the audio interface to the effects, to the hardware processor, and then back in to your audio interface. And then you could just freely move it around within your signal chain and move different elements around as you see fit. So, and once we open up the hardware, you may have to just say, okay, I want to go to the interface here, and that could impose additional latency. And let's measure the delay, and that will automatically then compensate for any delays within the audio path. So you get to use it same. Basically, once it's configured, you use it the same way as just a software plugin. Just the audio is sent out and returned back in. All right, so we have Arif checking in from Holland. All right, so we have music for World Peace Records, and we have Taylor from Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. So wonderful to see you back. Glad you could join today's live stream. All right, so we see, is the new Halion Sonic compatible with Cubase 11? I believe that it is, because it's just going to work as a VST3 plugin. So I haven't personally tried that yet, but I don't see why it wouldn't work. All right, so we have 612 Music saying hello from Phoenix. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so we see question from Patrick. Greg, how to snap automation perfectly on grid and turn off and on? Is there a setting? All right, so let's take a look. So I'm going to open up my automation here. So let's say we're going to just draw in some automation. I'll just turn my snap off. Okay, so now that we have our, I'm going to enable the snap, and let's say as I move the automation, so as soon as we can hit the letter J, so let's say I have this set to beat. Now, as soon as I grab the automation point here, we can just have that So right now it's kind of not snapping to the grid, but again, hit the letter J or click here and that will turn on the snap. And now that value is automatically going to be snapping directly to the grid. So if it's a little early, a little late, and you want like this point to snap to the grid, hit the letter J, and then that automation point will just snap directly to the grid as you select and move it. So give that a try. So make sure that the snap is turned on, and then as it's enabled, it's just going to snap directly to the grid. So that could be set to bar, beat, a quantized value, whatever you wanted it to be. Nice to see John Costigan getting thanks for helping out Taylor from Pine Grove. All right, so we see from the Heartbreak Time Machine says that he wants a feature request for a lock option, at least for templates. My students will sometimes save over the original starter template, and it's tedious to re-upload it every week. So, all right, so we see from Alan says, okay, about the solo, says maybe I have a conflicting preference about soloing on a selected track. So let me just see if there's a preference that kind of comes to mind with this. We'll take a quick look. So let's see if I turn off enable solo on selected track. I don't think that's going to make a difference. So when I come here, so it just seems kind of work just like that. If I had a track that was soloed, and with that preference, when I select another track, so the enable solo on selected track would allow me to select a different track, and that track is soloed. But it just seems like whatever I have selected, if I hit solo or if I hit mute, M for mute, that's how it functions. But maybe if someone else has had experience with that, they could leave a quick comment. All right, so we have Robotics saying hello to everyone. All right, and we have Spike Williams checking in from Rhonda, Wales. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Uno Memento wants everyone to hit the like button. Okay, so we have a question. Hello, Greg. Say we want to copy automation from the drum bus to any individual track with drag and drop. Example, filtered sound on kick and snare in the bus to individual channel in bass drum and snare. Okay, so let's say I have these tracks here, and I'm going to route them to a bus. So we're going to route it to a group channel. And let's say we have automation that we will draw in. Okay, so I'm going to just select my automation points with the selection tool and copy. And let's say I wanted to go to this automation lane, and I'm going to hit Alt. We could hit Control V, but I'm going to hit Alt V, and that will automatically paste it in the correct time. So let's say we'll come here, paste the automation to this track, and let's enable automation. And we can see that the automation has now been kind of copied from the group to the individual tracks. So let's see if we could copy it to two different sources at the same time. Yeah, I think it's going to be one at a time, but you could just do it just like that. So let me know if that is helpful for you. Okay, so we have a question. What's the best way to use an external hardware on more than one track? We could think of it, just like what you would need to do if you want to run it on more than one track is take multiple tracks and then just feed it into like a group channel. And then all of your tracks can be fed into the external hardware like that. So, just like, and it's also kind of just like a physical console where, you have one input output, so you can't necessarily send two tracks. You could send it into a group and then send multiple tracks to the group and then that out to your external processor. But, it's obviously one of the benefits of having, for those that have grown up on plugins where we can have so many multiple instances of the same processor, you have to realize that the hardware doesn't exactly work the same way. Okay. So Patrick asks, I heard composers use Metronome as composing tools. Is it true that Cubase has best metronome settings, change sound and velocity? Can I know which version? I have these options. I think others copied from Cubase. So yeah, a number of years ago, I think maybe 9.5, there was a lot of updates to the metronome. So if we go to the transport, and if we wanted to go to, let me just have this kind of play off in the distance here. So let's say we have our metronome kind of playing here. Let's go to transport and we'll go to the metronome setup. So if you want to go to different click sounds, so you could use kind of different click sounds if you wanted to. So if you say, okay, I want this to be like clave and if you wanted to have egg shakers, cowbells, you could just kind of come and have all that. And if you wanted like a Yuri click, you could just a vintage spike. And you could, again, come over here and change all, if you wanted to load kind of even your custom sounds, you could do that as well. So there's lots of different options if you wanted to make your own particular sounds for metronomes. I think the default Cubase click works really well, as you could kind of hear it very clearly in just about any recording sessions. Okay, so we see question. When I look up mute in the key commands, it shows invert visibility options for states and status. There are different options. What's the difference? So if we wanted to, let's say I have these tracks selected and I hit solo. And we could have these particular keys set up here. And so let's say now if I hit mute, but if I wanted to clear all mute states, so let's say I had a number of tracks kind of muted throughout my project, and I wanted to clear all of the mutes, not just on the selected tracks, that's when we could come over here and get rid of every mute or turn on mutes again. So So instead of just on selected channels, we could use the state buttons here to deactivate all solos and to deactivate all mutes, not just limited to selected channels when we hit the keyboard shortcuts. Great to see Best Green Jesus on. I saw that Best Green Jesus try to beat everyone by having the first comment in at like 11:40 this morning, about an hour 20 minutes before the live stream started. All right, wonderful to see Gareth on the live stream. And also wonderful to see Grant Nicholas from Baltimore, Maryland on. Glad you could join us. All right, so we see a question. How do I automate the rate of the arpeggiator in Cubase MIDI effects in my track? Why does it have, and does it have an unsync option where it's going to be in milliseconds and not note length? Okay, so let me just take a look at it. So let's say we want to turn on our arpeggiator. So let's get to this synth bass part here, this track, and we will come to my MIDI inserts. So let's just put on a quick generic arpeggiator. So now as I play a chord, and we could just kind of change our step size here. So I think it's always going to be in sync. Kind of, there's probably not anything that's worse than having arpeggios that are out of sync. I think everyone that's been dealing with synthesizers for a long time realizes kind of the drag of that. But if we wanted to change kind of the rhythmic pattern, what we could do is we could go to quick controls. And I'm just going to come over here. Let's say I have this fader set up as quick control. So when I go to my quick controls here, what I could do is I think we could just right click. Let's say I want to come to my track quick controls. And we'll get to MIDI channel and we'll see inserts, Apache, and then we could see I think it's maybe just the step size. Let's try that. So now as I play, I could adjust the step size using the fader. So if you watch the first fader, so this way I could use the kind of the quick controls to control the speed. Or if we wanted to change the length, so we could kind of, again, do the same function here. So just scroll down to MIDI channel, to inserts, Apache 2, and say, okay, we want the length to be adjusted. So that way we could just come directly over here and let's adjust kind of our length. I don't have this up for it. Let me just set this up for my quick control here. Okay. So now as I play, adjust the length. So this way we could just use quick controls to automate the different parameters of the arpeggio plugins. But again, I think it's always going to play in sync. So I don't know a way to have it switch to be out of sync. So, but I don't know many people want their arpeggiators out of sync with the track. So. All right, so we have a question on key editor. We have melody. Can we flip that or invert it upside down, retrograde inversion? Do we have some options, Greg? I believe Cubase has that. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so let's look at our key editor here. Okay, so let's say I want like this pitch. I want it to, so we'll say F3. I just want it to invert. So I think I have a logical editor preset for this. So what you could do is say, okay, type is equal to notes, and we want to take value 1 and mirror it, and I'm going to say around F3. So now we look at our MIDI events here. I'll just zoom in. And then I'll hit apply. That we could just do kind of retrograde inversion, stuff like that. So try selecting the event, and then you want to say value 1 and choose mirror. And then you could just say what pitch that you want to mirror based on. So let's say we do it from C3. We can just take everything around C3. And then if you wanted to, reverse the notes as well. So there's different functions that you could do. Just handled like that. So, check out like the mirror function in the logical editor. But there's also, if you go to MIDI menu here to functions, you could do stuff like, okay, I want to reverse the notes. I want to do as well as mirror the notes. So play around with that, Patrick. All right, so we see Spike Williams says, I found Halion 7 in my products last night, was super excited. The download failed, and when I clicked this morning, Halion 7 was no longer there. I guess I'll have to buy it. It's a must-have. So I think it's great, but you can get Halion Sonic 7 free, and that will play back all of your libraries, and that was basically giving you the replacement for Halion Sonic SE 3 and gives you some more capabilities. So we can think of that as a new player. So maybe it was a Halion Sonic and not a Halion 7, but I think Halion 7 is worth investing in, or the Absolute collection as well. And I think Nick does have the Absolute 6 collection. So we see, hi Greg and team, always learn something new from these sessions, although most of it's way over my head. Is there a recommended sequence to the learning process? It could really depend on exactly what you want to do. So if you wanted to do, scoring for film using orchestral libraries, that's going to be a very different learning process than recording myself as a singer-songwriter, with my acoustic guitar and some tracks. Or if I'm doing hip hop and EDM music, all those would have completely different learning approaches. I would always, I always will make the analogy of learning Cubase is like learning a musical instrument. You don't sit down the first day at a piano and, start playing Chopin pieces. You have to kind of figure out the mechanics of it. But there's a lot of, figure out what you want to do. Just set out small tasks. Like, I want to accomplish this today. I want to learn, how to get around the MIDI key editor. I want to come over and, edit the velocities of these notes and how does that sound? What does that work? And we could think of MIDI in of itself as like a different as its own language of communication. And audio could be a different language. So do you need to do a lot of MIDI? Do you need to do a lot of audio? So figure out exactly what you want to do, learn how to do that one thing, and then expand from there. So, okay, I'm a singer-songwriter. I want to record my guitar. I want to maybe start off with a drum beat. So I'm going to make a simple drum beat in Groove Agent. Then I'm going to record my guitar. I'm going to record my vocal. Then, okay, maybe I will sequence a bass part. Okay, what do I need to do after that? Maybe I need to put a little bit of keyboards or strings. Okay, now I've done that, how do I change the levels? How do I add effects to make it sound good? How do I export that so I could share it with my family and friends? So think about like the process of what you want to do, and then you could figure out the steps of how to get there. And if you have questions at any time at any one of those steps, just come into the live stream or search on CubaseIndex.com, and there's over 24,600 topics that have been covered in the live streams in less than 3 years. So, but welcome to Cubase, and please reach out anytime you need help. Okay, so we see, hello, please, pluning update Halion Sonic SE. How do I make, so, if you go to the Steinberg website, just say, just type in like Halion Sonic 7 download for free. And then really all you have to do is click on download now and kind of follow the directions. And then after it's installed, you'll be asked to kind of activate it. So from here, you'd use the Steinberg download manager. You'll at that point activate it. And when you start up, your Halion Sonic SE3 is transformed into Halion Sonic 7. And all your projects that refer to Halion Sonic SE are automatically migrated to Halion Sonic 7. So it's a pretty seamless transition. All right, so we have a question about the external hardware. So there's a question about using the external hardware. I create a copy of the effects and then freeze the track. I use a copy on another track. Is it the best way to do it? So yeah, if you wanted to use it across multiple single tracks, you could freeze it. It's going to do it in real time, obviously, because it needs to play the sound through the hardware and then to be captured back. But you could definitely do that as well. Okay, so we just see, where do I save custom sounds for the click? So let's come over, go to your metronome setup. All right, so we'll go to click sounds. We'll say use custom sounds. So let's see if we, and then you could just click on, just scroll down here on click sound presets, You could scroll down to save preset. All right, I'm just going to remove that because that would be extra annoying. All right. So once again, just come to click sound presets, keep scrolling down to save preset. And Valley just says, oh, that's going to annoy my customers. Okay. All right, so we see Mike Teams might not be able to make it today. So Gareth, in spirit, has opened the van and ice creams for everybody in his absence. So we'll miss Mike, but thanks for letting us know. Okay, my chat just jumped on me. Okay, so I think I'm back to where I was. All right, David Terry is on. Wonderful to see you, David. I hope you're well. So glad you can make it. He's a wonderful engineer from Nashville. So what a pleasant surprise. Hope you're doing well. Best Green Jesus just comments that I used to want to copy automation before I discovered how buses worked. So either way. So we see Greg, what if we do something like new like for every one of your live members who's willing can send their music and tell what's best part in this and how Cubase helped on this, and you play it live to the world. Sure, like I did have someone who sent me their project for I've used it on the live streams that and he just wanted to it was like. And often I always need to get new projects for demonstration purposes. But if someone sent me a project, I'd be happy to kind of show, to look at a particular project and, show how we could make it better or improve it, or just talk about how great this particular aspect is. So if you want to share projects with me, I just ask that it's kind of, copyright free so I could play it on YouTube without having, how to make, how to make cool beats, and I don't have to know music theory type ads on the YouTube before it plays. So if there's something that we won't get any kind of YouTube flags for copyright infringement, I'd be happy to kind of take a look at someone's project if they wanted to share it and use that as part of an example. Okay, so we see. So in the key commands menu, there are different options, states versus status. Not sure what the difference is. This is with the mute and solo, so let's take a look at it here. Okay, so let me just get to MIDI remote and let's assign some of my function keys here. Okay, so let's say we'll hit this button and let's get to mute. All right, so I'll just look at it in the key commands here. So, but let me just set this up for, all right, so I want to mute the selected track. And then, let's see, there's a main, and then we have main mute that's going to be for control room. All right, and let's see, under here, let's assign this particular function to this button. Okay, so when we look at, so when I come to, let's look at the key commands here. Okay, so we see the deactivate all mute states. All right, and I think that's this button here. And let's look at the status. All right, let's just see if the mute status is. Okay, and the mute status looks like it's maybe just for the visibility. And so this would allow us to, so with the mute status, that would allow us to say, okay, I want to hide all muted tracks. I wanted to show all muted tracks. But again, so if I had a number of tracks that were muted here, and now I hit the mute button with M, that would automatically just do it for the selected track. Now, if I go to deactivate all mute states, at this point, this would take all channels that are muted, whether they are selected or not, and deactivate the mutes on them, or deactivate the solos on them. So, you know, so when we hit M, it's going to do it for the selected tracks. And if other tracks are selected, the deactivate mute states. Now we could, I think, have, and when we go to the status, so that would take off all the mutes. So if we have MIDI tracks, we just select a couple of MIDI tracks here. And then I think if we go to our configurations, that we could say hide muted tracks. And that's going to be kind of on the status. And then we could say show all tracks. So this is going to be the status for the visibility. The states would be for all mutes and solos, whether the track is selected or not. And then we have, you know, just for the selected track, just M and S, and that is carried over to the track that's currently actively, track or tracks that are actively selected. All right, so we have DL White checking in from Fort Worth, Texas. Glad you could join us. All right, and wonderful to see Mark Rabin on. And we see that Stella, his dog, says hello to everyone. We hope you're doing well in Montana. All right, so Valley just says, is it possible to automate the ARP settings with automation lanes without the quick controls? I think the only way to actually do it is, let's see if I'll come back and see, we might be able to. All right, so I'll just solo this track, and let's get to our MIDI arpeggiator here under the MIDI inserts, and I'm just going to record this. So we're going to open up and then record. I'm going to take it off of cycle record. Sorry about that. So you could move it with your mouse. If you didn't want to use a quick control. So you could, when we look at that, we can see where it's sped up and slowed down depending on as I recorded it in and the step size as I was manually adjusting it. So you could do it using the mouse or again using kind of a quick control setting. Mark Rabin says woof to Stella, or from Stella. All right, so we have Patrick says on pre-live, I've been thinking about what purpose of effects track if I can group the track and I can put insert on that Y an effects channel track. Because a lot of people initially, while effects tracks and group tracks, I think this is kind of what the question is, are very similar. When we're kind of starting with as Cubase has grown over the years, many people wouldn't naturally think, to put their effects on a group track. So, I think that there's one or two minor differences. Like we can't record from an effects track directly into an audio track. So let's say if I come and I send this to an effects channel track. So let's say we're now here and we go to the effects channel and let's add an audio track. And let's see if we can just record just the effects on it. So as we play this, yeah, so I don't think that it passes the audio through. So, but just conceptually, people, understood that, like when VST first came out, like 96-ish or so, that was one of the main concepts was that it worked and behaved like an effects rack. So that's why there's kind of a difference in approach to it initially. And then once we kind of have that paradigm solidified in people's workflows, we can't necessarily abandon it, but they are very similar. So. All right, so we see a question, Zoom can be used from browser. So I think you could do it directly from a browser. I think most of the time it likes you to, for the Zoom meetup on Tuesday, that most of the time it likes you to just install the particular, the Zoom application, which is pretty easy to download. But yeah, pretty sure you could do it. You might be missing a couple of things, but... And we hope to see some new faces on the Zoom and old ones as well. Looking forward to it. All right, so we see Troka was able to come in and peek today. Glad he can make it. All right, so we see Mark Rabin just says, can someone explain what Greg just said about Halion 7 SE? Does it replace my current Halion? So we could think of Halion Sonic 7 is going to replace Halion Sonic and Halion Sonic SE. So, Halion Sonic SE3 was just almost like a player version. So... And there was Halion Sonic, which came with more content and came with like the flex phraser and some additional functionality. So Halion Sonic SE3 and Halion Sonic 3 as players can be replaced by the free download of Halion Sonic 7. If you have Halion, you could upgrade to Halion 7. So, and that is going to allow you to do sampling and create your own instruments, and that comes with FM Lab and Tails and, you know, all sorts of other sound sets. So if you're using Halion Sonic SE3, that is now being replaced by Halion Sonic 7. So all your old projects will immediately just kind of carry directly over that were where sounds were loaded in Halion Sonic SE3. They will just open up in Halion Sonic 7. So instead of having 3 levels, there's 2 levels to kind of simplify the process. And as more instruments are released, using the Halion engine, like there was just one that was released yesterday, colors for free. You could just simply, if you wanted that sound set, that's a free sound set, you could download the Halion Sonic 7 player, install it, and be able to utilize it. You see Mark Raven says it was minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit there, and they lived, so. So we see from Patrick, Greg, how much time do great producers take to produce a song on Cubase? What's the least time you encountered with Cubase? Still, you can't believe how he doing this fast. Probably one of the fastest guys in this one. Cubase was primarily only a MIDI, and it's actually Nick's friends, Joe Ortiz. That guy is scary fast with Cubase, and he's like an amazing player. So like he could belt out like a cover version of a song with all the parts. If it's a 4-minute song, he could probably do it in like 7 minutes and have all the parts programmed. He's just like a savant with that, and he's just scary fast and good. Stevie Wonder is incredibly fast too, just because he does everything with keyboard shortcuts. He knows that he's on this sound, he goes down 32 times, he's on this sound, and everything's just driven from keyboard shortcuts. He's incredibly fast as well. Those are 2 people that kind of stick out. A lot of times I may not be there during while they're doing their creative work where they're kind of in the zone. But I've seen some composers, like I saw Fred Corey do, for a TV show where he did a whole cue in 20 minutes, and he just had all, mic set up and percussion instruments over here, this drum over there, a guitar here, and his virtual instruments, and he was just kind of bouncing back and forth while I was playing, just laying down different parts. And I saw him do a whole cue once in probably about 20-30 minutes. That was pretty complex. So, but as long as it's good, it's good. Doesn't matter if it takes you a long time, but as you do it all the time, you'll get faster with it. All right, so we see, Greg, how to select MIDI notes with high velocity with MIDI Logical Editor because it's causing peaks, so it's better to do in MIDI Logical Editor and move that to audio. So let's take a quick look. I think we did do this before. But let's say if I wanted to take my MIDI notes here, and let's select the notes that have a velocity, let's say above 120. So let's go to our MIDI Logical Editor, and we're going to say we want to select notes, and we're going to say value 2 velocity is bigger than, we'll say 117. So at this point, we'll select all the notes that have a velocity higher than 117. Now, what you could do at this point, if we choose to transform, say, okay, I want to take value 2 and let's divide by 0.95. So this will be every note that is a velocity of higher than 117 and decrease it by 5%. I'm sorry, divide by 1 point. We'll multiply, I'm sorry. Stupid math. I used to be good at math. All right. So we'll multiply by 0.95. So now any note that has a note that has a higher velocity 117 is just going to come down 5%. And you could just do stuff like that as well. So let me know if that's helpful. All right, and my Citrix workspace from work always wants to update and then it doesn't work. Kind of annoying. Pop up every day. Yeah. Right, sorry, my chat field jumped. Let me just find my spot. Okay, so I think I'm okay. Okay, so we see, hi Greg, is a macro possible to have an event selected and move it to the end of the previous event, which is in a different track, but keep the event in the original track? Okay, I'll just kind of start with new project here. Okay, so if the event is lower, like, you know, if it's like one track lower, we could probably do it pretty easily. Okay, so let's say we want to move, move this event, and I'll just take this off the grid here. So I want to move this event to the end of this particular event. So let me just see if I just put it on events. All right, so if you put the shuffle mode here and just on events, so or grid mode, so put it on events here. As I move it, it's automatically going to just move it to where the previous event was. But let me see if I have this set to events and I have this selected. And let's say if I just you could, all right, so let's say if I had this set to bar, I'm just going to come here and let's just nudge it. Okay, so it's going to override that. All right, so if it's in between and I have this event selected, let's see if we... So we might be able to do something like, okay, let's go hit N for next. So if we're starting here, we'll hit N for next. Come up and then move to cursor. So let's see if we could create a macro for that without spending too much time. Okay, so let's move that. All right, we'll see. So if I start here with this track selected, okay, just try to add one more condition to the macro here. So if it is directly below, so I'm going to have this somewhere before here. Let's get to, yeah, so that seemed to work. So the macro is just transport locates, and this is selecting the track below. So we're going to locate, and I put the playhead position before the, somewhere in the middle of the event. Then we're going to go to the end of the event. We're going to navigate up. We're going to hit the right button to select the next event. And then we're going to edit, move event, start to cursor. So again, if we set up the macro here in this condition, so this track will be selected. No events are selected. Come over to macros and snap events on different tracks, and looks like that works. So let me know if that will help you out, Walter. Okay, reading through comments. All right, so we see Mark Rabin just says, this directed to Jazzy. Will my old Halion Sonic SE file still work afterwards? Sounds replaced, etc. In short, is this upgrade going to render my old files usable? So all your old Halion Sonic SE projects will just load up within Halion Sonic 7. So everything will just kind of work as expected. I know it doesn't happen with a lot of companies, but it's the right thing to do, and that's what Steinberg has done to make sure that you don't have to have like an older version of a plugin for project compatibility. So. All right, so I have a question from Chris Prongle. Is Cubase on iOS? So it's on iOS, Android, and and Chrome OS. All right, so we have Pro Wash DFW on. Glad you can make it, Randy. All right, so we see from Taylor, says, I just noticed that Halion Sonic 7 plus Tails and FM. It works for everything but Tails and FM. Why won't any of the sounds from those two load? So those are paid libraries. So if you purchased Halion 7, Tails and FM are libraries that come within Halion 7. But if you have Halion Sonic 7, it doesn't come with that since that's a free download. So you could purchase Tails and FM separately to get those to work inside of your Halion Sonic. So if you don't want the full Halion, but you want like, oh, FM Lab looks amazing, I just want to play with that, and I love Tails for the projects I'm doing, you could just purchase those without having to go through and purchase the entire Halion 7 just to play those libraries. Okay. Okay, just reading through comments. See discussion of 8-inch woofers and 4-inch, 5-inch woofers. So. All right, so we see a question, is there a way to reset a parameter using double click? So a lot of the parameters in like various plugins, or let's say if I'm, come over, I want it to get to reset. If you hold down Control or Command and click, that will reset a lot of the different parameters. So if we're in our mix console, and now I just wanted to Control or click, and a lot of plugin parameters would do this as well. So let's say if I go to my EQ, so if I just Control or Command plus click, so let's say, so if we turn on, so try Control clicking, and let's just open up a quick plugin, let's say on our channel strip. Okay, so now I adjust this, and let's move this, so just Control, Command, and click on the parameter, and that will reset it. So let me know if that's helpful. Okay, so we just see, Greg, can you show how to use macro powerfully? Is there a way to create a new one to do complex things easily, to have them as keyboard shortcuts? So, I mean, you can make, like we just created this macro to do this particular function. But, and if you wanted to take, so I'm not sure, what, how to make a macro use powerfully. Is there a way to create one to do complex things? So, I mean, like this, is just kind of automating it and to have them as keyboard shortcuts. So once you've created a macro, so we just did the CCLS, for Club Cubase live stream, and then snap to our different events. So, and if we wanted to go to our key commands, we can now fire off that macro from a MIDI remote device. But once we go to our key commands and we've saved one, all of our saved macros will now just show up directly in our list so that these can all be, just recalled and executed with a key command. So, but if there's any particular things that you want, like a complex macro, just let me know. And if it's complex, it may take me a little while to get all the steps right. If you want to send it in advance, I'm always willing to try to make a macro for someone. Wonderful to see Jeff Zabelski in Chico, California. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we have Nada77 checking in from New Zealand, preparing a session as I listen in. So thanks for joining the live stream. I always wanted to go to New Zealand. I got to go to Australia, but my wife did a 3-week camper trip in Australia before I met her. So one of the places I want to go to. Thanks for joining us again. Okay, so we just see a question from Sound XF Life. Sir, how DAW difference? Sir, how you use DAW name show? So, we're showing, Cubase 12 Pro, and I think that how it's different than other DAWs, one is it is probably is definitely the most comprehensive, where you don't necessarily need, lots of additional third-party tools to function. Okay, so we see just from Taylor from Music for World Peace Records, how do I uninstall Tails and FM? So, probably just go to your library manager. And then you could just come over here and just say, okay, I want to go to FM Lab, and you could just click on remove for FM Lab and Tails if needed. So just click on a remove tab in the Steinberg Library Manager, which is just a free utility. So John Barry is loving the FM Lab import function. Yeah, so being able to take all your TX81Z and DX7 patches. Okay, so we have a question. Is it possible to save an idea you've recorded on a single track without doing a mix down? For example, by dragging the clip or complete track to a folder in the media bay. So if you don't want to do mix down, so let's say I have, these are my different ideas, so let me just copy this, and, maybe I have this idea, so one of the ways you could do it easily is just to, if we go to render in place and get to the render in place settings, we could just choose to mix down. So let's say, okay, we want to complete signal path. Let me just So you could, mix down directly from there. You could also, if they're all in a single track, just, if you wanted to bounce selection. So if you go to audio, you could just choose bounce selection. And then that would make one consolidated file. And if you want to just say, okay, I want to duplicate this version and then bounce selection, you could do that as well. So this would be your particular file, and then if you wanted to access all the original files, you could do stuff like that quite easily, and that file could be dragged and dropped everywhere. So maybe use render in place or bounce selection. All right, reading through comments, we see Mayario just saying, thanks, Greg, take care. So. All right, so we see question, when I was comped my MIDI clip, how many parts? How can I bounce it? Like the final MIDI, not the audio, thanks. Okay, so let's say I'm going to add a quick instrument track. Okay, so I'll just do a quick keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to just do a quick MIDI recording here. And I'm going to put it into, I'll just do stacked. And we'll just put it into cycle. Okay, so now I want to make a compt of this recording. So let's come and we see our lanes. And I'm just going to set my snap to off. Okay, so let's say that's my MIDI performance, and I think that we could just go here to MIDI, and there's a bounce MIDI function, and now this is all one nice, happy, contiguous MIDI event. So that will just kind of take our different comped versions, close that, and just like we bounce audio, just come directly to bounce MIDI under the MIDI menu. And that'll all be one nice coherent part. Okay, so we see a question from Bon. Hi, Greg. How do you get the color on the mixer channels the same as the color in the top window? Okay, so let me just add a number of tracks so we can colorize it more. Okay, so we have our channels here, and we see the channels in the mixers. This is going to be just a preference. So we'll go to preferences, and I think under user interface we'll see track and mix console channel colors, and then you'll see mix console. So now when I click here, we don't see any colors. I click, and then all of the colors would be applied. So let's say if we go to open F3 and we go to our preferences again, so we can see kind of the colors all the way through. So if you don't want colors, click here. But if you want colors, again, go to preferences, add to user interface, track and mix console channel colors, and adjust the, just check mix console channels, hit apply and okay, and then you'll have your the colors in the mix console just like that. All right, so you see Patrick inviting me to Tamil Nadu in India. It's there's extraordinary places, and he could be my guide. So I'd love to go to India. I think one of the guys from Yamaha India, who's sometimes on the live stream, was talking about inviting me out for a trade show, but it was kind of during COVID. But I would love to go. I've never been to India. I would love to go. So, but I'd probably rather have my company pay for it, so I don't have to pay for the plane ticket. But I appreciate the invitation nonetheless. Okay, so we just see, in just a question, it says, okay, but if I just want to store it so I can easily drop it into another project to make a folder of ideas that you can drag and drop from. Okay, so let's say I just wanted to, we often want to make sure that stuff is, that the file management is right. But if you just, select the event and do an export audio mix down. So let's say we go to our stereo file here, and we could choose the path. And here you could just choose a particular folder. But at this, you could choose any folder that you want. So if you immediately wanted to go to desktop, or you say, okay, I wanted to go to, my documents folder, and this will be like a folder called sketches. I could, choose to save in that particular folder so that you could, and then when you do this, you'll see, where you could choose once a file has been exported. So let's say I'll do it into the sketches folder. All right, so I export. All right, and now when I go to a different project, or just go to the same project, we go to our export audio mix down. You could just see, your recent list, and then you could just export directly to there. Okay, so we see, so I just see a question, bounce in mono. So, if, let's say if we have a stereo track, so say if we go here, and let's say I route this, I think we could route it to like a mono group. All right. And now let's see if when we do a quick render in place, we'll go here to render settings. I think this might come out in mono, but you could also, it's still going out through the stereo, but if you, like when you do, if you want to do like for multi-track, if you go to export audio mix down, and if you choose dry, let's say we do multiple files, here we could just export it as a mono down mix. So let's say I'll add that as a queue. So we'll add that to a queue, and let's say I wanted to take, and if we choose for our effects, and if we just choose this to be dry, and we have mono sources, our mono tracks will be mono. So I'm going to split this. So I'm going to project, and we'll convert tracks. Okay, so now when I want to do a batch export, and we'll say all of my audio channels, and we choose disable dry, at that point we add this to a queue. And let's go ahead and start our export audio mix down. And we just cancel, and I'm just going to put it into the project so we could see. So we'll create a new audio track. Okay. So this way, you could have it, where a lot of times people want to take a track that is going through a stereo out with stereo effects and then have it bounce to mono, but what you're hearing is actually in stereo. So when we come here, we should see the new mono tracks kind of added at the bottom, so you can see everything is now mono as a result. So when if you wanted to export it as mono, just come to, when you get to export audio mix down, so you have a mono down mix option or interleaved. And if you're doing multiple, what you could do is at that point just select these, and you want to set the effects to dry, so that, or to channel strip and inserts, and then those will be carried over as mono sources. All right, wonderful to see Rude Screen from the UK. All right, so we see from Jeff Sabelski, Greg and Dorco Elements or Cubase Pro 12 for transcribing piano parts. When left hand shares the treble at times, are there any suggestions for that when inputting left and right hand separately? Okay, so just open up a quick piano piece. Just see if there's... Okay, so let's say we want to look at this in, I was going to do a quick tempo detection of it so it doesn't look ridiculously bad. Okay, so now when we're looking at it in our score editor, I think what you could do is, let's say we select these particular notes, and let me just select these notes and let me get rid of those notes. So let's say I want to take some of these notes and put it into the other staff. So we could just say right click on the notes and we can say display on the other staff. But let me see if so give that a try, Jeff. So so again, and if you have multiple parts, let me just duplicate this. Okay, so I'm looking at these two parts. All right, and we'll say we'll start with maybe, like I don't want this to be split staff. So we'll make this a single staff. Okay. So, and I know the notes are nonsensical here, but if now at this point, if I wanted to take, and these are two different parts, let's say I delete these notes, and let's say I want this to be bass clef. Okay, so sorry, just all right. So if I wanted like from this staff, this will be a good example here. So let's say I want to take these notes, and let's say they're down here, and I want to, let's see if we can right click and say move to like the top stave. So you could do it just like that. So if you have a single part or multiple parts, like if you have one track for right hand, one track for left hand, just select both of them and then be able to just right click, select the notes, right click, and you'll have the choice of which stave that you want them placed on. Let me know if I misunderstood at all. All right, so we have at Studio Salmono checking in from Italy. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we see drag and drop copy of an effects on a send channel isn't working, just a whole send channel. That wouldn't make much sense. Maybe I can't find it, so let's take a look. All right, so let's say I have an effects channel track that we'll add. Okay, so we'll have our reverb. Okay, so you say drag and drop copy of an effects on the send channel isn't working. Just a whole send channel, that wouldn't make much sense. Maybe I can't find it. Okay, so let's say, all right, so I have this effects channel. I go to my sends. I'll just do it here so we can see it. So I want this to go to my reference. Okay. Now, when we're using sends, we're obviously, sending out to the same effects unit. So there's probably doesn't make sense to drag and drop, because it's just like almost like a volume slider, since there's nothing to drag and drop into. But if you just activate Q-Link and let's say I select the channels like so, and I could now just turn on the reference and turn it on, and I could adjust and then deactivate Q-Link. And at this point, have different volume levels. So since it's not an actual event, like an insert, there's the insert is the actual plugin that's on the event. So we could, drag and copy that plugin, because it's a physical, we could think of it as a physical, it's a device. Whereas the send is really more of a destination. So if you wanted all your tracks to go to the same destination, you could do that through Q-Link. But that's probably why you don't necessarily drag and drop effect sends, because you're just kind of, it's really just the path, like the trail to get to the effects, as opposed to the effects themselves. So let me know if that makes sense. See, Dan Andrews says, watching from Dallas, really enjoying listening to this demo in a language and accent more familiar to me. I know, but, is like talking to people at Steinberg, they're always worried, but his accent is so American, So it's always kind of funny. All right. But I think to a lot of to me at least, I think, a lot of accents make you sound smarter. So. All right, so I think I'm caught up. Let me go to some of the questions that were mailed in while we're doing this. I think I did get an email in the middle of the live stream. Let's see if I could get that one real quick, if it's pertinent. All right, and then this came in from John Costigan. How do I obtain the download access code for the Colors free VST? It doesn't appear in my products downloads part of the download assistant, but it did download to the C system drive along with the lo-fi tapes. I should know this. All right, so what you need to do, and I made the same mistake yesterday. I was like, who would I call? I would call myself. So, but let's say I wanted to come here to Colors free for Halion. Okay, so we say come here. So what I did worked for me. Just kind of go all the way down. You want to say download for free. All right, and this will sign you into, it'll prompt you for your My Steinberg account. You could then, you need to get started with Halion Sonic SE7, so we could download that for Mac if you wanted, if you needed to, or for Windows, whatever. And then like that, when we go to that web connection here, this is kind of logged into your account. So once that is logged into your account, so this web page is kind of the link to your My Steinberg account. So once you're there, you can now go to your Steinberg download assistant. and then you'll see the colors free here. You could download it, install it, and then once you go to start it, you may ask you in the Steinberg Activation Manager to automatically, at this point, choose to activate the colors free. But if you just download it from here, from the Steinberg Download Assistant, that path doesn't work as well as starting it from the website, and then from the website, then it's linked to your account at that particular stage. So give that a try, John. Enjoy your new library. So I could show my Steinberg Activation Manager without a Halion 7 license in there now. So. Okay, so let me just go to the document. Thanks for sending your email in, John. All right, so we're at 97 likes. Thanks for that. Okay, just opening up my, okay. So we had a question, this is probably from, I think, the last live stream, how to mute the selected range with a macro. Okay, so I think I came up with a macro for this. Let me just try it here. So, and what we want to do is to be able to just say, okay, I want to take this range and split and mute it. So I think I made a macro. Let me just see if, so we say mute selected range. Okay, just I did have this working. But what I did in the macro, I'll just show you here, is I just went, and there may be other ways of doing the same thing. But I just said, okay, let's go to transport locators to selection, edit split range. We're going to switch to the object selection tool. We're going to go to the left locator. We're going to choose to auto select events. Let me just check that one preference. Auto select events under cursor. We're going to activate that. We're going to nudge the cursor by a frame, turn off that particular event, and then mute. So let me see if I may have the preference turned on already. But then we could just try it one more time, but could be one little condition. Sometimes in macros could do it, but let me just. So, but you could try that. So again, the macro, just coming over, just show it again. So let me just mute selected range. So that's what I used for that. Okay, so you see question about Dolby Atmos. Says I have a Dolby Atmos template on my orchestral instruments. My individual instrument tracks get routed to their instrument and their pitch. Example, strings high or brass low. Then those group tracks get routed to a master bus. Example, strings, brass, woods. Those group tracks then become objects in my Dolby renderer. For some reason, I can't get solo I can't solo individual tracks or group tracks. Instead, I'm having to mute everything other than one track. How should I be setting this up? So it sounds like you don't have a bed installed. So let's come over and just create this quickly. Okay, so let's add. Okay, so let's just say oboe here. And let's, on this particular track, we will go to and let's just do a trombone. Okay, so play this track, should have. And now we will. Okay, so now I have this, let's say I route this to a group. And we'll make this winds high. And let's route this to a group and make this brass low. All right, so now we have. Okay, so I'm going to now go to my Dolby. Let's go ahead and set it up. We'll go to our project and we'll say ADM author for Dolby and do the setup assistant. Okay, so we wanted to make our 7.1.4 renderer, and we're going to make our bed channel. So at this point, we will kind of follow and okay, and I'm probably not at 48K or the right buffer size. Okay, so now we're going to choose our render to be binaural. So when come here, let's say we have our oboe. And we'll say trombone. Okay, so now. So even now soloing, so make sure that you're actually going through the bed. So now if I wanted to go to this particular channel, and let's come over to like where our audio output is being sent. That is now being soloed through. So as we So it seems like that's soloing. So make sure that you do have the bed set up as opposed to going straight from from objects. So if we wanted to, let's take this particular audio output as well. So let's say we want to go to this, but it seems like that is soloing. But make sure that you've created beds as well. So maybe that's where you're kind of missing this step. All right, so I had a question. Hey, Greg, a couple weeks ago you showed how to send an instrument track to audio. Why does one want to do that? So often why we want to take different different audio characteristics or different virtual instruments and convert it to audio is so that we could free up different system resources. So if we go, let me find a particular project. Let's jump here. So if I had a large orchestral project and it was taking a lot of CPU and this, or a really complex instrument. So let's say this is now going to, a very complex FM synthesizer with 8 operators and different carriers and, very complex, and is taking a lot of my CPU. I could just select the particular event, turn it into an audio file, and then I could turn the instrument off, and then the computer is playing back just a simple audio file versus, generating a very complex synthesizer patch or using a lot of memory for different orchestral libraries. So another reason that people will turn different instrument tracks into audio is if you're sharing a project with someone and they don't have the same libraries, they don't have the same instruments that you have. At that point, you'd want to just render it as an audio file so that the person on the other end that's receiving the project can simply play back the audio file and have it sound as expected. Kind of a third reason that people often do this is people don't, I know a lot of producers, successful producers, and they don't necessarily, it's like a great chef that gives all of their recipes away. You don't want to give away kind of how you're creating your project, all of your little tips and tricks, what plugins, the exact workflow. It's so easy to backward engineer. So as a producer, engineer, programmer, all those different things, like you may be able to do something really slick, and that if you passed off the Cubase project to someone, that they go, oh, I see how they do that. So I see like Teddy Riley will, be very, cognizant of not passing on stuff that everyone could figure out exactly, that he spent hours and hours to figure out this trick and to do a particular workflow or type of editing or, different synthesizer programming, that instead of just handing that off to someone, he wants to keep that information to himself. Then he would just pass on a rendered audio file. All right, so we had a question. How do you become a certified Cubase trainer? So often what you would need to do is, depending on what country you live in, is contact your local Steinberg distributor. So I know in the United States, what we often ask for, we have a lot of people that want to be a Steinberg certified trainer, and we ask them to do like a short 10 to 15 minute demonstration video and share that with us. And then if that all goes well, and it looks like, they're able to teach and they're kind of organized in how they present the lessons, then we could pass it on for consideration to become, so that person can become a Steinberg certified trainer. I don't think technically I am one, so I guess I should sign up and become a Steinberg certified trainer. So I guess I missed the boat on that. All right. But they still let me do live streams. All right. And we had Soren that wanted to see like VST live. So let's take a look at that. I was having problems getting a project I had loaded in on VST live show up, but let's see if we can get it going for Soren. He's been patient. So VST Live is really kind of Check, check. All right. So I think we have sound back. Sorry about that. Thank you for the email, whoever sent it. All right. So I'm going to save this Project Logical Editor preset. So let's jump over to Project Logical Editor, setup in. Okay, so I'm going to do just quick recordings here again. All right, and let's take another pattern. And one more pattern. So let's say these are 3 different takes. Okay, so we have our different ones. So now we want to toggle and turn on the show multiple lanes on all of the tracks. I could just come there. All of my tracks are now visible, all of the lanes. I'm going to enable group editing on the track. And now as I grab my comp tool, I could just say, let's just select just those particular takes. So this is how you could comp multiple lanes together just using that function. So you could use that and have that as a key command that you could trigger that Project Logical Editor preset. See, Benny says that I am Mr. Steinberg. So unfortunately, I'm not in Charlie Steinberg's family, but. Sorry that I lost sound there. All right, I'll try to go back to the VST live at the end. Okay, reading through comments. All right. All right, so we see from Element question. Hello, Greg. Is Steinberg team intention to implement some true innovations, or you just stick to some minor improvements, but 1 to 5 of full version price for every new Cubase? So I think what Cubase has done is there's usually for every new version that there's probably over 120 features, whether it was a 0.5 or going to a full version. So, what is innovative for some people, they may not use that particular function, but if you do like a lot of exporting, if you do a lot of stuff with, being able to determine like the chords from, generate a chord track from dragging and dropping an audio file over, you could do stuff like that very easily. So, there's always you're always working on new stuff for a wide variety of different users. So I just see from Marcos, I should have a second device for voice on YouTube anyway, going into mixer parallel. So Yamaha should just give him a decent mixer. So I have a decent mixer, but I can't monitor the live audio because it's about 20 seconds behind. So. Okay. Okay, so you just see, Greg, how to use sidechain for drums. So it's good to take just a quick look. So I'm not sure if you want the sidechain to trigger a different device. So often when you do sidechaining, it could be used in so we'll show the sidechaining functionality here. So often when people are utilizing this, it's to take kind of, let's say we have different sources here of audio. So if we wanted the kick to be more prominent, I'm going to take the bass here and do a sidechain so that every time that the kick comes in, that the sidechain compresses the bass sound. So we will come over here. Let's go to the channel settings, and I just have loaded up a compressor here. And what we want to do is to activate the sidechain. And we will pick our sidechain source. So we want the bass to be compressed and ducked down. So at this point, we're going to choose our kick drum. So now every time the kick drum comes in, that's going to trigger the sidechain of the on the bass. So now it's going to sound like the kick drum is louder, but in essence, the bass just gets ducked down so that the kick is more easily heard. So that's how you could do kind of a typical sidechain function. So let me know if you need more for different drums. or different scenarios. Okay, so we see a question on audio record modes. When you record multiple tracks / comps, besides having them on lanes, why are multiple tracks underneath each other? Because you have, they're all on the same track. So we could have different files on, that are on top, and then you could select. But one of the things that you could also do, what I generally prefer for kind of doing like a multi-track drum thing, is instead of using lanes, is perhaps using track versions. So I'll enable this. So if you don't want them to go kind of on top of each other, and we'll show this method of it. Okay, so at this point, one of the things you could do is just say, okay, I want to do different recordings. So I'm going to do just a quick recording. So let's say now when I hit record, I'm going to do it across multiple tracks. So we could just record and enable all of the tracks. So let's say we'll do take 1. Okay, let's do take 2. All right, but before I do take 2, sorry, let me just... I'm just going to start over real quick here. Sorry. Let me just revert this just to show this. So, so this is the method I use for drums that I prefer. So I'm going to go to all of my audio tracks, and let's do just a quick recording. So we have multiple tracks that are being recorded. So if you don't want them stacked, is just, while these are selected, select all these tracks and just go to new version. So now I could select a different all right, and again, with all the tracks selected, go to new version, and you could rename the versions. Okay, so now we could just switch between the different takes. So now as we do this, there's take 2, take 1, take 2, and take 3. So if I wanted to go to a new version, what we could do now is just say, okay, I want to, let's go to this version here. I want the first two measures of this. I'm going to copy, and let's go to version 4, and I'm going to paste at origin. Let's go to version take 2. I want this, so copy, go to take 4, paste, and let's go to take 3. So this way all the files aren't stacked on top of each other. Copy, switch to take 4, paste, and now this is our comp take. So we have one take for measures 1 and 2. So we could just, we won't have this play. And you could just have that kind of repeat. So if you don't want the different elements to be kind of stacked on top of each other, but you think of one track, why they're stacked is because you've recorded multiple audio files on the same track. And that's why it's automatically kind of carried over. Okay, reading through comments. Discussion of pitch correction on an oboe part. So we see from Marcus Osmers says, wait, what are we doing here? Is this an MPC style workflow with overdubbing different instruments in a 4-segment loop? So you could consider it and think of it that way if you wanted to. All right, we'll see if there's, I think I'm at the end of questions. I may not jump back into do another VST live, as I'm afraid I may lose audio on that, but we'll see if there's more questions that come in. Sorry about losing the audio with that, but it's hard for me to actually listen to the audio of the live stream itself because it's 20 to 30 seconds behind, so it's a little... it's like tracking with 20 seconds of latency. So I apologize for that. But we'll see if there's other questions that kind of sneak in. Give it a couple of minutes here. All right, we'll wait just another minute or so, see if there's any other questions that sneak in. And if you've learned a tip or trick, make sure that you do hit the like button. All right, so we see question, is there a way when we are in lanes that the mouse turns automatically in a comp tool? Not necessarily, just because other tools will automatically can still be functional in lanes. So let's say if I wanted to, I'll just do a quick recording. I'll do new versions here. And let's say I'll just do a quick stacked recording. Just for demonstration purposes, and I'll just play something here, get some audio in. All right, so when we go to look at lanes, So as we look at it, we could, erase events in a lane. We could, mute events. So not, we could come over here and slightly, if we wanted to slightly adjust or slip the contents within the lane. So all the other tools are still active even when in lanes. So if it was the only tool that would be active when in lanes, I could see where it would make sense to have it automatically go to a comp tool. But since so many particular tools are available and active, and if you wanted to, adjust stuff manually, you could do that as well. So that's why when you're in lanes, it just doesn't go to the comp tool, because there's, so many of the tools have particular functions, even though the lanes are visible as well. All right, so wonderful to see Keith Young on. Enjoyed seeing your pictures on Facebook of you in Hollywood, Florida. So. All right, we see Uno Mementos going skiing in Lapland, in north of Finland. Have a wonderful ski trip. Yeah, so we see just a comment on the tools. Says without having to switch from a select tool to a comp tool and back. So one quick tip, whatever tool that you're in, if you just kind of tap, so if I have this tool, just tap quickly and then move away, and then it'll just go right back to kind of the object selection tool. So I have this tool, tap and just click, and then just move, and then it immediately goes back to your object selection tool. You see Jeff Sabelski complaining as an oboist having to pinch his reed because the brass is sharp. Yeah. I remember that day in orchestra. So, all right, we'll see if I'll give it another minute or so, see if there's more questions. All right, so we see a question from Mandala Man. I have a drum kit I created on Groove Agent. I'm wanting to separate each pad to its own track in order to edit them individually. How is this done? Thank you. All right. Great question. Okay, so if we wanted to do this, I'll just come here. So let's say if I had this pattern playing. So if we're kind of doing this, here, let me just revert this project. So if we want to do this, it could be different depending on if you have a beat agent kit or if you have a acoustic agent kit. We'll show you how to do it on both. All right, so let's come over to, we'll start with the beat agent kit. So let's say we have our pattern playing here. So I could take these to different outputs. So let's say I want like these bongos to go out of output 5. And this one to go out of output 5. I want my hi-hat to go out of output 3. Maybe a tambourine. So now when we do this, we could see our different tracks are going to outputs. So now if we wanted to turn this into audio, So this would allow us to obviously come and say, okay, I want to take, and then if I wanted to, you know, add reverb just to the percussion or EQ it. You know, make it louder or softer or whatever we want to do. So we could separate it this way, but if we want to now take a look at it, and if we have like the pattern, I could drag that onto the project. And once that pattern is selected, what I want to do is we go to our edit to render in place, and we want to do like the complete signal. And what this is going to do is as we render it, it's going to render each of the files independently. Here, let me just uncheck that. So, and then you could just render those independently. And if you wanted to do this with the, like an acoustic agent kit, how we break it out is just in the mixer. If we see our kit mix here, we could have up to 32 stereo outs, and that would kind of do the same process for that. Okay. And then also, if you had the whole kit, you know, one thing that you could do if you need to edit these into separate areas, you could just come to MIDI, and then you'll see dissolve part as a function. So we could just say dissolve part, and that will automatically split each of the pitches into different notes for you. So all right, wonderful to see that Michael Teams had made it today. All right, he's traveling. All right, we'll see if there's any more questions that are coming in. If not, we'll wrap up a little early. All right, so we see, can you change the visualization of waveforms, improve the quality, maybe? All right, so let's take a look at it. So there are different ways of looking at it. I think quality looks good. So let's jump to like maybe just a quick 2-track. Let me find, here we go. You know, one of the things that the designers always want to do is, because we have people that, you know, work, you know, for multiple hours a day and staring at their screen so they don't go bug-eyed when working with it. But we'll show you some. All right, so as we look at the waveforms here, so if we wanted these to, let's go to our preferences, and we could go to event display. So if we want to adjust like the waveform brightness, like some people who come from like maybe a Sonic Solutions, which used to be a popular, you know, audio workstation, kind of in the early 90s. If you know, people that wanted white waveforms, you could also have it be black waveforms. So you could adjust that. And if you wanted to adjust, I think even if we go to the event display, you could adjust the event opacity. So some people just want to see like the colors not really change, and then use that in conjunction with maybe the bright waveform. So you could do stuff like that if you wanted to. So there's a number of different settings between the event display and the audio for waveforms. So you can do quite a bit of customization there, or like if you wanted the opacity of the background, stuff like that, you could also just say, if you wanted the grid overlay to be more intense. So let's say the event opacity, so you can see like the grid more intense, or if you don't want that to be as intense. So there's lots of different tweaking that you could do with the visualization of the waveforms. All right, let's see if there's more questions that sneak in. If not, we'll wrap up a little early. So I'll have a little bit of an earlier night after doing all the indexes. Sorry for losing audio for part of it. Should have kind of kept it the same. But Soren, if you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy just to kind of do a quick one-on-one demo of VST Live for you. If you want to reach out over the weekend or sometime next week when your schedule is good, I'd be happy to give you a quick walkthrough of it as well. All right, so we have Lawrence Koch, says, hello from Rhode Island. Had my first commercial customer in the studio last week to start a project, and it was a success. That's great. Thanks for letting us know. Let me know if you tried we showed it at the end of the last live stream, Lawrence, about how to create a momentary switch for the Talkback. All right. So we see last one. Can you export without volume and effects for an easy method, let's say for mixing? So if you have like a multi-track project, you can come over. Just go to activate this. And when you do an export audio mix down, let's say if we're doing a multi, you could just choose for this to be set to dry, and that won't include any of the mixer effects, so that'll just be kind of the raw channels. So when you are in the multi export, under the effects, choose dry, and you could include like the sends, you could include the inserts and EQs. In the channel strip, you could also include the groups and sends, and incorporate the master effects as well. All right, I'll give it another 30 seconds or so, and we'll see if there's more questions. If not, we will go ahead and wrap up a little early. Hope that everyone has a wonderful weekend. And again, Tuesday we'll be doing our Club Cubase Zoom meetup. So what that means is we usually go for 2 hours, and then we have 2 hours, and usually it goes for 3, just kind of hanging out and catching up with each other and socializing and all sorts of wonderful things. I think it's always a wonderful opportunity to meet people. I enjoy it. It's my favorite part of the month work-wise, just getting to interact and talk to all the different customers. So look forward to seeing some new faces. Yes, I see from Lawrence Koch about the setting a momentary lapse on for the talkback on the control room. So if you have your Stream Deck just set up to transmit a MIDI note, you could have that set up. You should be able to do the same thing and just have that MIDI note from your Stream Deck. And there's a free Stream Deck MIDI utility so that each of the buttons you could have it transmit a particular MIDI note message. So you should be able to do it from your Stream Deck as well. All right, we'll see Michael Pierce gonna hope to make it on Tuesday, perhaps with a new hair dye. So, all right, so we have Enzo Mag just saying thanks, Greg from South Africa. Thanks for being on. All right, so with that, I guess we will go ahead and wrap up. Thanks you, everyone, for all the wonderful questions, and we will see everyone back on Tuesday. We will, at that point, look forward to seeing everyone on the Zoom meetup, and everyone please stay safe and healthy, and thanks for taking part of your morning, afternoon, evening, and spending time learning about Cubase, and we'll see everyone on Tuesday. And I see from Mandela Man said, how do we join the Zoom meetup? So what I'll do on Tuesday's live stream is I will send a link. I'll include a link on Tuesday's live stream. But if you want to email me at clubcubase@steinberg.de, I'd be happy to share the link as well. So I could send it to you in advance. Okay. Well, thanks again, everyone, and we'll see everyone on Tuesday. Take care and have a great weekend.